A very good afternoon, Mrs. Isaacs, Dr. Parmar, Mrs. Roberts, and to all the delegates and faculty advisors present here today. It is with great pleasure, yet with a hint of sadness, that I welcome you to the closing ceremony of the 24th annual session of the Cathedral Model United Nations Conference. It's hard to believe that after months of relentless preparation and 3 days of intense debate, CMUN 2020 is finally at its close. The quality of debate and research and the level of tenacity and enthusiasm that we witnessed at CMUN this year were truly unparalleled in nature, and our participating delegates exceeded even our highest expectations. Our conference began with the prestigious opening ceremony, graced by the presence of renowned economist and professor, Dr. Raghuram Rajan. The Deputy Secretary General Ayush Jain and I had the opportunity to deviate from the tradition of standard speeches and engage in a meaningful conversation and discussion with Dr. Rajan on the economic state of the world, as well as his experiences and the lessons he learned from them. The committees this year at CMUN followed an anachronistic theme. Yet, despite their unconventional and challenging nature, delegates performed exceptionally well across all our 9 committees. In our specialized agencies, delegates were challenged and presented with constant updates, unique crises, and stiff competition, but they prevailed as true crisis solutionists nevertheless. The Historic Security Council witnessed the formation of an international terrorist network, with bin Laden declaring jihad against the United States of America and Saudi Arabia murdering its own king in the midst of escalating regional tensions in the ongoing Algerian civil war. The Nordic Viking conclave of 1015 AD managed to deliver incredible crises and responses despite its ancient nature, proving the prowess of our delegates. The committee successfully executed a siege of London in the midst of a pagan genocide, a seemingly impossible feat to imagine. And finally, our Deputy Secretary General's Committee, the Chicago Crime Syndicate, tackled everything from a voting scandal in the United States presidential elections to unsolved crimes such as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre with expert skill and dexterity. And our extremely talented International Press Corps established themselves as worthy future reporters and representatives of the fourth estate. And in doing so, they achieved what the media internationally often fails to. Delegates of the International Press Corps navigated through a media blackout while simultaneously attempting to uncover the truth behind allegations of the misuse of bioweapons against the Muslims in China. The regional bodies at CMUN 2020 aimed at combining more substantive debate with realistic yet unique crises. With ever-relevant agendas such as climate change, artificial intelligence, international health and sanitation standards, and the consequences and remedying of colonization, our regional bodies attracted delegates who wish to epitomize our anachronistic theme and apply their insights to events that define the past and threaten the future. In the United Nations Artificial Intelligence Council, delegates came together to decipher the consequences of communication losses with Antarctica, tracing it back to a sinister plot involving 2 different terrorist organizations before legislating upon it to prevent such incidents in the future. And in the emergency session of the European Union 2020, we had countries shut borders amidst a major refugee crisis, while a delegate in committee was suspected as a part of the crisis to have COVID-19. Finally, from the assassination of King Leopold, who committed mass genocides of 15 million people in the Congo, and the infection of the Nile with an unknown epidemic in the special session on the decolonization of Africa, our regional bodies really caught delegates off guard and compelled them to think creatively. On to the General Assemblies. In the Economic and Financial Committee, delegates faced a crisis and deliberated upon the abduction of the presidents of the Financial Action Task Force. Additionally, the Sinaloa drug cartel captured trade routes and began to mass supply life-threatening drugs into nations by concealing them in imported goods. But finally, the Economic and Financial Committee had produced some of the most detailed and comprehensive paperwork ever seen at CMUN. Whereas our second General Assembly body, the Committee on Outer Space Exploration, saw fantastic 3v3 debates and witnessed new treaties being made while the old ones were declared obsolete, and ended with space exploration becoming the safest it has ever been. CMUN's traditional night emergency also took place this year, on Friday, the 21st of August 2020. And to label our night crisis a resounding success would be a gross miscarriage of justice. Delegates of 4 committees found themselves embroiled in massive emergencies and spent 4 extremely intense hours trying to resolve them before the fall of dawn. The Historic Security Council saw the Algerian civil war transcend regional boundaries and acquire an international character. Inspired by real-life events and timelines, the executive board exercised creative liberties in presenting delegates with global crises that heavily emphasized the counterfactual and extended beyond their agenda. The Nordic Viking conclave was split into a joint crisis cabinet, where one room tackled a plague, while the other dealt with internal mutiny, with the actions of both cabinets mutually affecting one another. And the mafiosi of the Chicago outfit were met with the challenge of assassinating Benito Mussolini and dealing with its global repercussions, an assassination is the world affair. The delegates stepped up to challenge forging alliances and making deals that would benefit the Capones. The past 3 days of intense conflict, crises, and debate culminated in the success of CMUN 2020. The delegates of all committees proved to be very innovative and quick on their feet, resulting in a high level of debate and fantastic responses to crises. If it weren't for them, none of this would have been possible. So I would like to thank each of them for making this conference truly come alive. And with that, I would now like to invite our Deputy Secretary General, Ayush Jain, to deliver his address.
Before I begin my speech, I'd like to speak about an initiative that we adopted this year at CMUN 2020 that I'm proud to be a part of, the CMUN for Society initiative. This initiative aims to provide education to underprivileged girls in Mumbai in association with the Kinnari Foundation and was initiated last year by our Deputy Secretary General, Akshay Bal. This year, I was fortunate enough to carry forward the initiative, and I'm glad to say that it was a resounding success. I'd like to thank Mrs. Asmi Shah, the Chief Trustee of the Kinnari Foundation, for allowing me to raise funds for her foundation. Lastly, I'd also like to thank all the benefactors of this initiative, without whom this wouldn't have been possible. Good afternoon, Mrs. Isaacs, Dr. Parmar, Mrs. Roberts, faculty advisors, and of course, the delegates who expect me to make a dry joke about how they want the award ceremony to begin. Having been in your place multiple times over the past 4 years, there's nobody who better understands your anguish than I do right now. But please, bear with me. I promise I've kept this speech short, because brevity is the soul of wit, and who doesn't want to be witty, right? Now, under normal circumstances, I'd be delivering this speech in the ballroom of a 5-star hotel on Marine Drive with 400 eyes all focused on me. I'd preach about some political issue, or give a didactic speech about some abstract belief of mine, like consequentialism or nihilism. But I'm not in a 5-star hotel right now. I'm at home, dressed in a ridiculously formal suit, while my family goes about their day the way they normally would. It's confusing for you, for me, for everyone. And as you can guess, that's what I want to talk about. Not just about the pandemic, because I'm sure you hear and read enough about it in the golden age of media, but rather about a lot of other things that are on my mind right now. Despite commanding virtually no authority in your minds, I'd still implore you to listen to these thoughts, because beyond some of my jaded cynicism lies an actual message that I want you to hear. Now, hopefully at this point in my speech, I've only lost about 20% of the audience. Now, to wake up the remaining 80%, I'd like to make a bold statement. We are not in the middle of a pandemic. Well, not exactly. It's true, we do face a global virus with no known cure. But I'd like to argue that this is no different from the state of affairs perhaps a year or two ago. Let me throw some numbers at you. A WHO report from 2017 estimated that around 150,000 people die every day. Out of these 150,000 people, 25,000 people die solely due to starvation. Now, although the numbers fluctuate, the average daily death toll due to COVID-19 at its peak was only 10,000 people. That's less than half the people who die due to starvation. So the question is, why do we care so much about it? Well, it's easy. It's because it affects you. You're not going to die of starvation tomorrow, but you might just die due to COVID. For the first time, the world has united to face a global pandemic, and the figures make you realize that this is not due to its mortality rate, but rather because of the unavoidable fact that it threatens to burst the utopic bubble of safety that the upper echelon of society lives in. For the first time, each one of you is forced to face an experience that millions of people all over the world face every single day. For years, civil wars have plagued Yemen. Terrorism has torn the fabric of Nigeria. Systemic genocide against Uyghurs has gone unnoticed in China. And lastly, our own country has been transformed into an unsecular nationalist land of injustice. Something that seemed like a dystopian future a decade ago has now become an absurdly normalized reality. And that's where the problem lies. What saddens me the most about this pandemic is not the fact that it has been given global paramount importance, but rather the fact that it took a non-discriminatory problem to make us care. It saddens me that if your life wasn't affected by the pandemic right now, it would be just another article on page 6 of a newspaper. The idea that death is condemned and mourned only when your own life is threatened is what surprises me the most. And that's why we're not in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of another global attempt to save the privileged. Looking back on this pandemic, I recognize that it might be considered outright Machiavellianism for me to say that I wouldn't change the way things turned out. But it's true. It might be optimistic of me to say this, but I hope that the 800,000 deaths that occurred over the past 6 months have helped you gain perspective on the millions more that occur every day. And unlike COVID-19, these are the millions which you can do something about. For those of you in the audience who've been unfortunate enough to see somebody suffer due to COVID-19, my heart goes out to you. But beyond that, I hope that yours does too, towards the families of those in war-torn or poverty-ridden areas who suffer a needless demise every day. This isn't me guilt-tripping you. The last thing I'd want is for you to go home and put up an Instagram story about some horrifying news story out of Yemen. Jermaine Cole, a poet and voice of our generation, once said, "The only real change comes from the inside." So, what I want you to do today, as soon as this speech ends, is introspect. Even if it's just for a few minutes, I want you to think about the injustices that occur right under your nose every day and what you can do to change the world we're in. Read, learn, protest, voice your opinions, do something to make a difference. If that's too much, you can start on a microscopic level with a small donation to a cause you care about. Systemic change always starts at the grassroots level, and approaching it in a top-down manner is bound to end in disappointment. And I think this thought of a grassroots movement is the true epitome of CMUN. The idea that no individual or country is ever too small. The idea that hope still exists. And that as long as conferences like CMUN exist, every individual has a platform to voice their opinion and leave this conference slightly more motivated to make the world a more idyllic place. Rather than reminiscing on my own time as a delegate or the role that CMUN has played in my life, I'd like to end by saying something you've probably heard for years. Whether this be the 100th or the first time that you hear this, I want you to hear it anyway. You have the power to effect legitimate change. And out of this audience of 500 delegates, if even five have come out of this conference with some perspective on their privilege, if even five have been impacted enough to use this privilege to form educated opinions and question those responsible for these injustices, if even five have walked out of this conference less indifferent than they were 3 days ago, then I would consider CMUN 2020 to be a resounding success. My last thought to you today, at the risk of becoming yet another cliche preacher, is this. Be the change you want to see in the world around you. No matter how insignificant you think you are, your thoughts and efforts will define the future of our planet. Because before you know it, the ramblings of one 17-year-old student will turn into actions that impact millions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ayush, for that wonderful address. I'm sure you've inspired the hundreds of delegates attending CMUN this year to enact legitimate change in the world. Now, before we officially end the conference, there is a multitude of people who deserve our heartfelt gratitude for making CMUN 2020 a grand success. To begin with, I would like to thank our Dean, Mrs. Isaacs, for her guidance and unstinting support to CMUN, and her vision to have it online, which we initially thought was impossible. Without her encouragement, this conference would not be possible. Thank you for always being so accommodating and encouraging. I would also like to thank our Vice Principal, Dr. Parmar, for the several meetings we had with her, wherein she helped us finalize the questions for our opening ceremony, approved our sea of requests, and constantly sent us words of encouragement. CMUN 2020 truly would not have been possible without the encouragement you gave and the faith you had in us throughout, Dr. Parmar. So thank you. I would further like to thank our headmistress, Mrs. Roberts, for her wholehearted support and guidance as well. Now, organizing a conference on such a large scale requires a tremendous amount of administrative work. The CMUN coordinators and symposium teachers, Mrs. Shah, Mrs. De Silva, Mrs. Nair, and Mrs. Justin, you have truly epitomized the dedication that goes into planning a conference such as CMUN. Without their tireless, indeed Herculean efforts, and their refusal to compromise on CMUN's traditions of excellence and competence across all areas of the conference, we would not be here today. I would also like to thank, on that note, our school teachers for volunteering to supervise and assist us in ensuring a smooth execution of CMUN 2020. And now I come to the CMUN Secretariat itself, comprising a large group of dedicated and talented students of the Cathedral and John Connon School. Firstly, I would like to thank the Deputy Secretary General of CMUN 2020, Ayush Jain, whose dedication, experience, and organizational skills were integral to the success of the conference. I was and am extremely fortunate to have a Deputy Secretary General this talented in his skill and meticulous in his work guide me and accompany me on this journey. It has truly been a pleasure working alongside you, Ayush, these last 2 years, so thank you. Our charge d'affaires, Ariana Kelachand, Alia De Silva, and Vianka Shah, as well as the heads of logistics, Alia Oberoi, Jehan Jaikishan, and Veer Bhansali, deserve high praise for their assiduous work. From managing the social media pages to creating lengthy logistics lists, these 6 members of the Secretariat have truly helped our conference reach broader audiences. the organizing committee, whose tireless efforts have helped us in the planning and execution of CMUN 2020. The directors, moderators, and assistant directors of all 9 committees deserve a large round of applause for their commitment and genuine enthusiasm, from their fantastic management of committee to their meticulous planning of the emergencies. And an indispensable part of CMUN, especially this year, has been our IT team. No committee would be able to function without them. Because when a conference of this scale goes online, it demands extremely smooth online resources and logistics to be conducted. Our IT team worked tirelessly to completely revise the website and fix any problems, configure the Discord servers, and help us stream both the opening and closing ceremony live, and do so much more. CMUN 2020 is extremely grateful for the commitment of our IT team members, Arav Akali, Arhant Bubna, Shaurya Jain, and Shaurya Singhi, with a special round of thanks to our head of IT, Arnav Mehta, who worked round the clock, coordinating and diligently fixing any problems that we faced. And finally, I come to the most important part of CMUN. You, the delegates. I would like to say a huge thank you to all our delegates and participating schools. Your keenness, excitement, and continued participation year after year makes CMUN come alive every August. From faculty advisors to participating students, you form the crux of our conference, and we are immensely grateful to you for always bringing talented, well-researched, and intelligent delegates every year. I hope CMUN 2020 has lived up to your expectations. And I urge you to preserve your contagious passion for Model UN and to resolve crises throughout your lives. With over 500 delegates from 5 continents, CMUN 2020 was truly a massive effort, the scale of which cannot possibly be captured in my speech. Thus, I would once again like to thank each and every person involved with the conference for their invaluable contributions. We now begin with the much-awaited award ceremony. The awards presented to delegates in ascending order are as follows. The diplomatic commendation, for which there will be no material certificate. The honorable mention, the outstanding delegate, and of course, the best delegate award. And with that, I would now like to invite the Executive Board of the Economic and Financial Committee with Director Karina Kanani and moderators Pranjali Goradia and Shrija Bagadia to read out the committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. It was an honor chairing this session of the Economic and Financial Committee. This General Assembly displayed no traces of monotony or lack of enthusiasm. Committee was always active, be it while delivering impactful speeches or the never-ending points of information. The delegates immensely surpassed my expectations when it came to lobbying and paperwork. I think this is the only GA that spent more time on crisis rather than the actual resolution writing. Even though we failed to avert the mentioned crisis, the delegates formulated some of the most intricate and well-written pieces of paperwork that I have ever seen, regardless of the immense time constraint. The fact that CMUN was going to be online this year genuinely disappointed me. But to my surprise, this committee has been nothing short of the most energetic, captivating, and dynamic committee that I have ever been a part of. I would like to thank my exceedingly brilliant executive board, with Ambika, Nishka, and Rahil as assistant directors, and Shrija and Pranjali as moderators, for making sure that committee was such a huge success. This speech would be incomplete if I didn't mention Yashmit, Rhea, and Jia, the logistics members, without whom none of this would have been possible. This is possibly going to be my last MUN ever, but one thing I can say with utmost confidence is that it was easily the most memorable one too. Now, moving on to the much-awaited awards, I will be handing it to the moderators Shrija and Pranjali to announce.
The awards for the Economic and Financial Committee are as follows. The diplomatic commendations, in no particular order, go to the delegate of Papua New Guinea from the Strawberry Fields High School, the delegate of Iraq from the La Martiniere for Girls, Calcutta, the delegate of Peru from the Singapore International School, and the delegate of Saudi Arabia from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School, Delegation B. The honorable mentions, again in no particular order, go to the delegate of Canada from the Sri Sri Academy and the delegate of China from the Sun City School, Delegation A.
The Outstanding Delegate Award goes to the delegate of Kuwait from the Sanskriti School.
Finally, the most awaited award. The best delegate of this committee made stellar points, brilliant speeches, and most importantly, adapted to crisis in a matter of seconds. This delegate genuinely impressed the entire executive board on every front. The best delegate of the Economic and Financial Committee, CMUN 2020, is the delegate of the United Kingdom from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School, Delegation A. Congratulations, delegates. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you to the Executive Board of the Economic and Financial Committee. I would now like to call upon the Executive Board of the Committee on Outer Space Exploration 2025 with Director Khushraf Buhariwala and Moderator Yuvraj Goel to read out the committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. Delegates of the COSE, I'm truly at a loss of words as I stand here trying to describe this committee. The right blend of outlandish, amazing, diplomatic, and honestly outright intelligent, this committee did not cease to impress me. The technical know-how and the effective response of this committee to every situation thrown at them was something truly worth seeing. We may have failed all of our 6 pieces of committee paperwork, an unpleasant stat, yet according to me, a CMUN record in GAs nonetheless. But yet the only thing this statistic goes to display is how high the standard of each delegate in my committee was. I'd like to take this opportunity to also thank my committee logistics members, Tanay and Tanmay, for making this online experience as seamless as possible when we knew it would be a challenge from the very get-go. I'd also like to thank my fantastic executive board comprising of my moderator, Yuvraj, and my assistant directors, Shaurya, Heya, and Ved. You guys were the best executive board I have ever seen, and I'm proud to call all of you my executive board. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank all of you, the delegates of the COSE, for the amazing experience, and honestly, I wouldn't trade anything in the world for it. This was not only my last CMUN, but also my last MUN, and what a fantastic 4 years of running it's been. Thank you to everyone who made it possible. I'd now like to hand over to my moderator, who will be announcing the awards, the most anticipated part of this.
The awards for the Committee on Outer Space Exploration are as follows. The diplomatic commendations, in no particular order, have been awarded to the delegate of Hungary from Strawberry Fields High School, the delegate of Virgin Galactic from the La Martiniere College, the delegate of China from Modern School, Barakhamba Road, Team A. The honorable mentions, again in no particular order, have been given to the delegate of Greece, the delegate of Singapore from the Bhavan Vidyalaya in Chandigarh, and the delegate of the United States of America. The outstanding delegate in our committee was the delegate of Canada from the Sanskriti School.
And the best delegate of this committee, Lettuce Block, with great command, gave what I've seen some of the best substantive speeches, all while keeping committee on the right track through his brilliant questions. The best delegate of the Committee of Outer Space Exploration 2025 goes to the delegate of Russia from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School, Team A. Thank you, delegates, and congratulations.
Thank you to the executive boards of the Economic and Financial Committee and the Committee on Outer Space Exploration. With that, we conclude the awards for the General Assemblies. Congratulations to all the delegates. Moving on to our regional bodies. I would now like to invite the Executive Board of the Emergency Session of the European Union 2020 with Director Kia Kilachand and Moderator Ria Nazir to read out the committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. Over the past 3 days, I have had the privilege of interacting with a group of extremely talented and well-researched delegates. COVID-19 devastated Europe in its early stages, causing debilitating economic losses and death, and tested the healthcare infrastructure of the entire continent. In the ESEU, we attempted to recreate this chaos and saw delegates deal with it in a commendable manner. I feel extremely honored to have witnessed this discussion and have gained insight into the perspectives of very intelligent individuals on such a relevant topic. 3 days are not nearly enough to cover the vast array of technicalities that this agenda brings, but our delegates managed to pass a working paper and discuss 2 very comprehensive draft resolutions during this time. Thank you, delegates, for making my last CMUN truly memorable. Before moving on to awards, I would like to thank my tech team, Anushka and Ananya, and my exceedingly talented executive board consisting of ADs Saisha Saxena and Rutud Shah and moderator Riya Nazir, who will now announce the awards for this committee.
The diplomatic commendations in no particular order go to the delegate of Poland from Modern School, the delegate of United Kingdom from the Sri Ram School, and the delegate of Switzerland from Sun City School. The honorable mentions go to the delegate of France from Delhi Public School and the delegate of Germany from Sun City School. The outstanding delegate awards go to the delegate of Latvia from Dhirubhai Ambani International School Team A and the delegate of Italy from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School Team B.
And the best delegation of the emergency session of the European Union 2020 for their impeccable paperwork and impactful speeches, who far surpassed our expectations, is the delegation of the Russian Federation from the La Martiniere School for Boys, Calcutta. Thank you.
Thank you to the Executive Board. I would now like to invite the Executive Board of the special session on the decolonization of Africa, 1887, with Director Ishanika Raje and Moderator Rishabh Pai to read out their committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. An extremely dynamic and enthusiastic committee filled with grueling debate, intense lobbying sessions, and unparalleled diplomacy. This special session on the decolonization of Africa truly exceeded my expectations by addressing every crisis update we threw at them and continued to impress us with their versatility, creativity, and of course, the enthusiasm to contribute to the discussions and raise countless points of parliamentary inquiry. Our hardworking and talented EB consisted of the moderator Rishabh Pai and the 2 assistant directors Saksham Sood and Shaurya Jain. And this committee would not have been nearly half as successful without them, or our dedicated logis and tech team with Vidhi and Arshi. And now onto the moment you've all been waiting for, the awards, which I will pass on to our moderator.
The awards for the special session on the decolonization of Africa are as follows. The diplomatic commendations, in no particular order, go to the delegates of Liberia from St. James School's Delegation B, the delegates of Spain from Rato Bangala School, and the delegates of the Portuguese-occupied Mozambique from the Singapore International School. The honorable mentions go to the delegates of Belgium from Sun City School's Delegation A, and the delegates of the Congo Free State from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School's Delegation A. The outstanding delegate awards go to the delegates of the United States of America from Sanskriti School and the delegates of the United Kingdom from Sri Ram School, Aravali.
And finally, the best delegate of the special session on the decolonization of Africa, 1887, goes to the most calm and composed delegates with amazing lobbying skills, detailed knowledge of the topic area, and an impressive ability to deal with every crisis update we threw at them. The delegates of the German Empire who came to CMUN as individual delegates. Congratulations, delegates.
Thank you, Ishanika. I would now like to invite the Executive Board of the United Nations Artificial Intelligence Council 2060 with the Director Pranay Mundra and Moderator Sridhar Sinha to read out their committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. I'll begin by thanking my fellow Executive Board members, Moderator Sridhar Sinha and Assistant Director Avni Vats, as well as our amazing logistics team, Ankita Agarwal, Meera Bhimani, and Chris Jain, who enabled our committee to be the success that it was. After 3 days of intense debate and constant crises in our committee, The delegates of the UNAIC came together to pass a resolution with 36 out of 54 votes, the exact number required to form a 2/3 majority. My moderator will now read out the awards.
The awards for the United Nations Artificial Intelligence Council are as follows. The diplomatic commendations, in no particular order, go to the delegate of France from the Delhi Public School megacity, the delegate of New Zealand from the Sri Sri Academy, and the delegate of Tencent from La Martiniere for Girls, Kolkata. The honorable mentions, in no particular order, go to the delegate of the United Kingdom from La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata, and the delegate of DeepMind from the Rato Bangla School. The Outstanding Delegate Award goes to the Delegate of India from the Sri Ram School, Araval.
And the best delegate of the United Nations Artificial Intelligence Council 2060, a delegate with excellent speeches, dominant lobbying, comprehensive paperwork, and effective communiques. The delegate of China, who came to CMUN as an individual delegate. Thank you.
Thank you to the executive boards of all our regional bodies. Those are all the awards for our regional body committees. I would like to extend my heartiest congratulations to all the delegates. And now moving on to our specialized agencies. I would now like to invite the executive board of the Historic Security Council, with Director Shreya Saraf and moderator Himnish Jain to read out their committee awards.
Looking forward to chairing the Historic Security Council for a long time, I can definitely say that my last Model UN conference was by far the most memorable. For this, I would like to thank the delegates as well as my brilliant executive board, including my moderator Himnish Jain and two assistant directors Vedika Bajpai and Siddharth Rakshit. I would also like to thank my logistics team of Adit Nagori and Arnav Shah. Tackling the Algerian Civil War in 1995 was in no way an easy task, especially when coupled with crises such as the creation of an international terrorist network, the abduction and killing of the Algerian head of state, as well as the apparent affiliations between P5 nations and known militant groups. The arduous and challenging night crisis saw the imminent fall of several powers, with the US economy crashing and underground Hezbollah cells functioning within their territory. What seemed to be the strongest international bond between France and the Algerian government crumbled as France issued an ultimatum to enter Algeria through forceful military intervention. However, delegates were up to the task, passing a plethora of detailed communiques and statements, along with extensive debate, to resolve several of these impending crises. While all delegates were exemplary, there were some who stood out over and above the others, and so I would now like to call upon my moderator, Himnish Jain, to call out the awards.
The awards were as follows. The diplomatic commendation goes to the delegation of Libya from the Campion School, Mumbai. The honorable mentions, in no particular order, go to the delegation of United Kingdom from Bhavan Vidyalaya, Chandigarh, and the delegation of the United States of America from Delegation A, Modern School, Barakamba Road. The Outstanding Delegate Award goes to the delegation of Iran from Delegation A, Dhirubhai Ambani School.
And the award for the best delegate of the Historic Security Council, one who wowed us with his brilliant debate and diplomacy, from the La Martiniere School for Boys, Calcutta, the delegation of Algeria. Congratulations, delegates, and thank you.
Thank you, Shreyas and Himnish. I would now like to invite the executive board of the Nordic Viking Conclave 1015 AD with Director Ranessa and moderator Divij Khaitan to read out their committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. Before I begin, I would like to thank the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General, Ayush Jain and Ananya Purushottam, for trusting me with such an unorthodox committee. I know it was extremely difficult, but I really thank you, as it was very successful. Set in 1015 AD with limited information and nearly no context, this committee was going to be a challenge not only for the EB, but for the delegates as well. But I must say, this committee blew me away. From delegates sending in a total of around 200 communiques to having a mole in committee, a genocide, a plague, splitting committee into two, and eventually executing two of our own members. This committee was an experience that I shall treasure for years on. I would like to thank my amazing EB, comprising moderator Divij Khaitan and assistant directors Kader Saraf and Namay Modi, as without them, this committee wouldn't have been possible. Thank you for staying up at night till 4 o'clock each morning and helping me. I would also like to thank my two logistics members, Ava Moose and Ariman Muraka, for being the best crisis actors I could have ever asked for. And last but not least, my dear delegates, thank you for never failing to impress me. I am proud and I'm honored to have been your director over the last 4 days, and you have made CMUN the most memorable month I have ever had. I will pass on now to my moderator so he can read the awards.
The diplomatic commendation goes to Olaf Skotkonung from the Sri Ram School, Aravali. The honorable mentions, in no particular order, go to Sven Hackinson of the Aditya Birla World Academy, Mumbai, and Harold Svensson from Bhavan Vidyalaya, Chandigarh. The Outstanding Delegate Award goes to Thokil the Tall from the La Martiniere School, Boys, Calcutta.
And before I announce the best delegate, I would just like to say that it was extremely close between the outstanding and best delegate, and it took the executive board over 3 hours to decide who it would go to. But the best delegate award goes to a delegate who dominated each committee session, had brilliant research, creative communiques, and despite being executed by the committee, came back even stronger and led the committee's siege on London. The best delegate award of the Nordic Viking conclave of 1015 AD is the leader of the Varangian Guard, the late Olaf II Haraldsson from the Sanskriti School. Thank you, delegates, and congratulations.
Thank you, Rana and Divij. I would now like to invite the executive board of the International Press Corps, with director Sana Chawla and moderator Maya Vegas, to present the committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. It has been an extreme honor to serve as the director of the International Press Corps this year. The delegates displayed a commendable level of debate, excellent lobbying skills, creative articles, and exceeded all my expectations. I would like to thank my executive board, which consisted of moderator Maya Vegas and assistant directors Riya Bhasin and Jarina Shivdasani, as well as our logistic member Riya Sacheti, without whom committee would not have been such a success. Now my moderator Maya will call out the awards.
The awards are as follows. The diplomatic commendations, in no particular order, go to the Delegate of the Times of India from La Martiniere School for Girls, Calcutta, and the Delegate of Fox News from Dhirubhai Ambani International School. The honorable mention goes to the Delegate of Al Jazeera from Dhirubhai Ambani International School, and the outstanding delegate goes to the Delegate of the Islamic Republic News Agency from Sanskriti School, Delhi.
And the best delegate of the International Press Corps, a brilliant orator and diplomat whose articles were not only informative but also witty, the delegate of Chosin Ilbo from the Sunbeam School, Bhagwanpur. Congratulations, delegates, and thank you.
Thank you to the executive board of the International Press Corps. I would now like to invite the executive board of the Chicago Crime Syndicate, with Director and Deputy Secretary General Ayush Jain and moderator Harshman Desai, to read out the committee awards.
Thank you, Ananya. I'd like to thank the delegates of CCS 1929 for 3 of the most exhilarating days of debate I've ever experienced in my life. Whether it be attempting to assassinate Benito Mussolini or becoming a transnational organized crime syndicate, the committee had some of the best ideas I've ever seen. But none of this would have been possible without my talented executive board, consisting of Harshman Desai, the moderator, Ishita Singh and Aryan Kazmi, the assistant directors, and lastly, Kush Gandhi and Chinmay Purushottam, the 2 logistics members. Now, without further ado, I'd like to invite my moderator Harshman Desai to give out the awards.
Chicago Crime Syndicate 1929 will have 4 awards, 2 diplomatic commendations, 1 outstanding delegate, and 1 best delegate. There will be no honorable mention. Two diplomatic commendations in no particular order go to the delegate representing Lawrence Mangano from Bhavan Vidyalaya Chandigarh and Paul Rika from Dhirubhai Ambani International School Delegation A. The outstanding delegate goes to the delegate representing Tony Acado from J.B. Pettit High School.
Finally, the best delegate of the Chicago Crime Syndicate 1929 is a delegate who had a great balance between well-written communiques, speeches, and lobbying. The best delegate of the Chicago Crime Syndicate 1929 goes to Ralph Capone from the Modern School Baracamba Road, Delegation A. Congratulations, delegates.
Thank you to the Executive Board of the Chicago Crime Syndicate, and congratulations to all the delegates who have won an award, but also to every single delegate who participated in the conference and gave it their best shot. Congratulations, and we hope you return. With that, there are certain schools and delegations that performed exceptionally well across the committees at CMUN and exceeded the expectations of the executive boards of all our committees. To commemorate and recognize their exemplary performance, CMUN has 2 delegation awards. Given this year's extreme competition, we are thrilled to announce that we have 2 outstanding delegations at CMUN 2020. In no particular order, the first award for the outstanding delegation at CMUN this year goes to Delegation A from the Dhirubhai Ambani International School from Mumbai. The second award for the outstanding delegation at CMUN 2020 goes to the delegation from the Sanskriti School, Delhi. And now, on to perhaps the most competitive award in the whole conference. The award for the best delegation at CMUN 2020 goes to the delegation from the La Martiniere for Boys School, Calcutta.
Congratulations, delegates. Well done.
And now, with the power vested in me as the Secretary General, I officially declare the 24th annual session of the Cathedral Model United Nations Conference closed. Thank you.